Hello. This is the first of the series in Revelation, and the title of this presentation is The Rationale of the Seven Last Plagues. You know, the seven last plagues and the wrath of God is used synonymously in that they both have to do with the same thing. Let me read it to you from Revelation 15, verse 1, where it says, "And I saw another sign in heaven, having seven angels having the seven last plagues. For in them is filled up the wrath of God." So the seven last plagues and the wrath of God can be used interchangeably. Also in Revelation 14, which is the third angel's message, it says, "The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image," and I'm skipping a little, "the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God." That is, they will experience the seven last plagues. So the wrath of God is something that we need to understand if we are going to have any part in giving the third angel's message, which will finally swell into the loud cry and the great call out of Babylon. So we're going to look at the seven last plagues and let the Bible be its own interpreter and let the Bible define its own terms. All right, so you know, the way it was among the Greeks and the Romans, when they worshiped their gods, they gave them their own human characteristics. Their gods became angry, and their gods had passions of lust and other various things, just like human beings. But we need to know that God is not a human being, and we need to let the Bible define the wrath of God or the seven last plagues, so that we won't put our own characteristics upon God. Because there are some individuals who look at the seven last plagues and they say, well, apparently God's nature changes because he's always been a God of mercy and forgiveness, and it says God is love. But when it comes to the seven last plagues, that's different. His nature changes because he becomes very angry, and sometimes they feel that the last generation, those unfortunate people that lived during the seven last plagues, will suffer much for what all their ancestors have done. And they say, well, it's a strange act. It's not really God's usual character, but it changes at that time. Well, we need to not be like the Romans and the Greeks. We should let the Bible explain and define exactly what the seven last plagues really is. So I'm going to read here from James 1:17 in the scripture, where it says, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning." So we know that this is not a change in God's character. And so the Bible does define the wrath of God. It defines exactly what the seven last plagues is in the first chapter of Romans. So let us read now again from the scripture. And I'm going to quote from Romans chapter 1, verses 18, 21, 24, 26, and 28. And there it tells us exactly what the wrath of God is, because it says, "The wrath of God is revealed from heaven." And then it says further down that because they insisted on putting God out of their lives, it says they became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Therefore, God gave them up. And again, in another verse, it says, God gave them up. And finally, it says, God gave them over. Well, who does God give them over to? We need to realize here that God is finally granting man his own freedom of choice. And that's what he has done all through the ages. But when we come down to the last generation and to the seal of God and to the mark of the beast, which is a final decision, if men choose to serve God, they will receive the seal of God. And that will protect them all through the 7 last plagues. But if they choose to have the mark of the beast, then they have chosen their master, and God gives them up, he gives them over to serve the master which they have chosen. So we're going to look now at what the Lord has to say about the reason, the rationale, why he does this at the end of time. I'm going to read from Job, where it says that there was a council one day in heaven where the sons of God came to meet with the Lord. Now, who were those sons of God? Well, you see, Adam was a son of God. He had no earthly father. And so God created him, and he was called a son of God. And he was the representative of the whole human race. And in other worlds, in other planets, where God created intelligent beings, they also, the first one created, was called a son of God. So from all the different planets, different worlds, different places in the universe, these sons of God came together for some reason in this council. And who should appear there but Satan? And the Lord asks Satan, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And it says, I'm reading now from Job 1, verses 6 through 11. And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. You see, this is what Satan was saying. He was saying, you gave dominion of the earth to Adam, but Adam sold out to me. He became my servant. So I have the dominion of the world, of the earth, and I walk up and down in it, and it's mine. It belongs to me, and you should keep out of it. So the Lord said, well, wait a minute here. So the Lord said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that fears God and hates evil? Now, the Lord was saying, you see, he said, Satan, I still have representatives down there, and I have guaranteed that man shall have freedom of choice. So he said, have you considered that Job is one of my witnesses? He is my servant. And then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for naught? Have you not made a hedge around him? That's a restraint. And about his house and all that he has